Well, hello, hello, hello. Let's hope I'm able to be heard. This is episode 38 of Josh Says Mean Things, which is wild. We've been doing this for like 4 years now, which I'm still kind of blown away by it all. Thank you all for supporting us, and thank you for submitting your photos so that I can ridicule them. We have lots to cover today. We have automotive, we have portraits, we have wild cats, all kind of stuff. I even threw some of my photos from a wedding I shot in Virginia this weekend, so it'll be fun. Yeah, if you're out there listening, throw hello in the comment. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, Josh Says Mean Things. It's kind of a joke. I don't really say mean things, not too mean, but basically most people aren't used to having their photos critiqued. So it's just critiquing photos and then showing an alternate version in Lightroom. So it's not what you have to do, but I want to use some of these photos to show what you could do in Lightroom, or maybe an alternate take, maybe an alternate crop, maybe an alternate colorization. It's just a different way to push a photo as a way to both learn Lightroom and to learn from other people's photos so that you can make better photos for yourself. Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. We're going to have fun. Yeah, I know a lot of our friends that are only watching Burkich and Jim and some other guys. They're in Alaska right now, so I'm a little jealous of them. They sent me a picture yesterday of them getting on a seaplane to go photograph bears and wild landscapes. And that sounds awesome right about now. So hope you guys stay safe out there in Alaska. Jim and Burkich, and I think Nick's out there as well. So yeah, anyway, if you're currently watching, throw me a hello. Yeah, so why don't we get started and we can see what's going on. Okay. First photo is from John, ATX Worm on Instagram. I'm really kind of jealous of John right now. He's been going out to these really cool networking events that are put on by, I think, this person, Jay Julian, I believe is her Instagram name. She's been doing these like monthly or weekly almost meetups, and John's been braving the non-air conditioning and the late nights, and I'm a little jealous that he's out there doing them. It's something I need to be working on more, getting out, meeting new people. So congrats on John to bear with all of that. So these are some of the photos he got. A couple little things on this one that I think are kind of neat. Hey, what's up, Chris? I love this detail. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. If you hold the control key, and then click a box, you can zoom into a specific area in Lightroom. So control, and then I'm just dragging. But I love this detail right here of the hand in the mirror there. I think that's a really neat little detail. So I love the focus here, nice and crisp and sharp. That's way zoomed in for on a JPEG. But nice sharp eyes. Everything looks really good. Wow, it's way too close. I like that she's really filling the frame. There's not a lot of dead space. There's not a lot of there's a little bit of black. There's just a little bit of texture in the background, and so she's really popping off against that, which I really like. It looks like he kind of went with maybe a little split tone here. I see some like blues. You kind of see some blues in the shadows, maybe some reds or oranges in the highlights. So kind of a different tonality. I like this expression. I like that the plane of her face is not the same as her eyes. So if we imagine that the eyes are looking at like 0, right? We don't want the face also looking at 0. It's nice when the face is like plus or minus 10 or plus or minus 20. And so it's creating contrast by having the plane of the face looking in a different direction than the plane of the eyes. I like the relaxed hand, and then kind of this casual pose sitting on a motorcycle. Like it's fun. I will say, I think the feet and legs here are a little over bright. This kind of area here, as we're drawing, I find this to be a little over bright. And it's kind of taken away from this really cool reaction and expression that she has. And so that's kind of the first thing I noticed. Her skin could use some retouching. It looks like the lights kind of. I know that I know where they were shooting, and so I know it was hot, and they're probably a little sweaty. So we kind of have some harsher lights on the chin, the cheek, the brow. That's kind of hard to control for as well. I do really like this detail of the tire. I love all these like little bitty details. Like you can tell she's on a bike, but it doesn't scream motorcycle, right? We're not seeing the whole thing. We're just seeing just enough to give us a hint. Um, and so, yeah, I like it all around. Um, I bet the model would like it too. Something that for lighting wise, a backlight of some kind, either pointed to her shoulder or lighting up the background a little bit, assuming the background is worthy of being lit, right? So if it's a terrible background, don't light it. Maybe put an edge light onto the model just to separate her a little bit more off the background. The navy that she's wearing, the dark of the bike, kind of gets washed out a little bit with the dark of the background. Now she pops off, but to separate that edge, to kind of see where her shoulders, where her elbows end, some type of rim light might be really useful to kind of give her just that enough of a rim to separate her off the background. Just something to think about. So let's take a look and see what we did here. Don't want to give it too much away. So just a couple things here. I went with a different camera profile. I did camera neutral. Add a little bit of vibrance. The neutral is a very flat profile, so adding some 15 vibrance kind of came back to kind of bring back some of the color. I also I really darkened a linear gradient. You can kind of see going across there, and all that's doing is darkening those legs and feet down just to bring more attention back to her face. I want the face to be the brightest part of that. And then to kind of bring out some more maybe in the background and show a little more color, there's a radial here with 100% feather, 0.7 exposure. And that's just bringing up this area across here in a way that, right, that's kind of the central area from the bike detail up. And it brings in a little bit more of the background as well, just to give it a little bit more texture where it's not so dark. And then I just did a quick brusher on her face, negative texture, negative clarity. I could have taken it into Photoshop and run like skin or something. The neural skin filter is pretty good. We also did quite a bit of spot removal, get rid of some of the acne just to smooth it out just a little bit. You know, it's always such a fine line, I think, with skin retouching. We want to retain, you know, some of the natural pores, some of the natural look. My general rule is, you know, I want it to look like what their skin might look on their best day, or, you know, after a good makeup artist or something like that went through, but still real. Like that it's a very fine line between realism and looking like so smooth and so lacking texture that, you know, it looks fake, and that's not what we want. We don't want to look fake. The other thing that we did, just a little bit of smooth color grading, midtones to green. There was a lot of red in this image to begin with. If I hold the Y key, you can kind of see where we started with. That's the before photo. So there's a lot of red kind of coming through here, especially at collarbone, some of that area. So midtones to green to get away from the reds, shadows to keep a little bit of that magenta, but just barely. I mean, we're barely in the shadows. And then again, in the highlights, again, just barely. We're like one click over from center. So it's just a very subtle amount. And then we boosted those highlights up. We took the shadows down, and we raised up the midtones a little bit as well. So that's just kind of a different way. I didn't really want like full standard edit. So John had already kind of shifted color. So I wanted to shift with that as well, to kind of lean into that like slightly different coloration for more of a creative shoot. So yeah. And then he also submitted this one of our good friend Rachel. I'm zoomed in. At first I didn't realize that she was standing and kind of like leaning against the wall. It felt like this felt very Twilight to me for some reason, or like a vampire kind of laying in a coffin. That's just kind of where my head went the first time. That kind of black satin dress, the red lips against the black. Like there's just some stuff going on that made it feel, I don't know, vampiric to me. And so for me, I in my edit, I'm going to show you. I went very much into the blues. I went very much into the unnatural looking skin tone, very frosty, very icy is how I would describe it. But I really like the crop. He did a 16:9 crop here, and I really like that. I think it really comes in well with the action. You can see this nice diagonal right there, that kind of diagonal line in our crop. I think that's kind of a really neat way to look at this framing. But yeah, I like that. You can see the skin got smooth, but not so much that we're losing all texture. So I think this is a good, yeah. And we're shooting against black walls. I was there, kind of a black wall here. That light was hitting that black, so it made it a little gray, a little blue. And maybe this blue here and blue here is kind of what made me feel twilightish. I don't know. I don't know where it came from, but that's just what it felt like to me. I like the texture and the smoothness of the hair. It wasn't shot at too high of an ISO, 500, so everything's fine there. I like the way the lips are separated, so we can see just that little bit of teeth where we don't have that kind of locked jaw, lips closed. So I think that's a good expression. And then the eyes mimic that same amount of openness. Just a little bit of the whites of the eyes, but not too much. So it's a very subtle thing, but I really like that. I do wish the hand wasn't completely gone right there. She's holding it across her body, and who knows how many people were shooting her at the same time. This was at one of our Round Rock Open Studios. We'll be having another one soon. I'm not sure on the dates yet, but probably in October, November, we'll be having another one. They're really fun. And this is from one of those, Round Rock Studio. Awesome folk over there. I'm also a member over there. It's a great place to shoot. I feel nice and creative and supportive there. So, yeah, I do wish I could see just a little bit of the hand to mimic the hand that we can see here. So just a little bit of some fingers to match the little bit of fingers over here, I think would give it a little bit more symmetry. So all in all, I think I really love the non-traditional pose. This horizontal, it does look like she's laying down, but she's standing and kind of throwing her back, leaning against that wall. So I think it's a really neat photo. Exposure on her cheeks is really good. And then everything else kind of is darker around that. So good stuff. I went a little bit crazy. So the first thing I did, there's no skin retouching on this one. So this is an intermediate step. But what I did and what I want to show you is instead of doing just color grading here, which you can see it's all blues and purples, we also are using the tone curve for each color channel. So it's very slight, but it's kind of a fun way to maybe more visually color grade for y'all. It's something I think y'all should try. In the tone curves, instead of doing an overall tone curve of all of the exposures, you can separate this out right into red, green. We have kind of green, magenta, and then cyan, yellow, blue, right? Yellow and blue here. And so you can say, hey, in the shadows, I want to have a little bit more red or take away red, or I want to bring up the red. And it doesn't take a lot of movement to kind of get some things going with it. But it's just a fun way to add some S-curves to color as well. So you can say, hey, in the highlights, I want to go more blue. Hey, in the shadows, I want to go more red. And that's kind of the way to think about it. Same with the greens here, right? I want to add more magenta into the shadows, or I want to go more green in the shadows. I think this is a really neat way to, you can obviously go very crazy if you want to get, totally wild. That's not where we're going. We're going for subtle, but it's a different way to color grade it. And this is the first way that I learned to color grade was by manipulating the tone curves. And so with that tone curve, then we came down and did our color grading, right? Which is all blues and purples anyway. You can kind of see the before and after here. And really what I'm going for is very much a, I don't know, for lack of a better term, twilight feel. I do like this like out of focus highlight there. And so this is kind of where I started. I don't think I did any cropping. I did a little bit of cropping. So I brought it in just a touch. But I kept this out of focus element. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe a crystal or a filter or something. I don't know. But the whole point was to kind of give me a starting spot to do that. Some filters we used along the center here. I just wanted to bring all of the skin tone up a little bit more. And then I inverted it and darkened the area that wasn't skin tone or anything. Um, and then I killed the highlights going from left to right. There was a little bit of the way the light hit her face. It kind of made it for a weird highlights around her mouth. So it was kind of to even that out. But all this is taking down highlights. Now, from here, I took it into Photoshop. I cleaned up the skin with the spot healing brush, and then I used the new neural filters. There's a smooth skin, and I went way overboard on it. Okay, I did, but I wanted it to feel unnatural because I wanted her to feel like a vampire. And then I used Nick Effects Glamour Glow and added blue to the glow. And so this is kind of the final version of all of that with the skin smoothing and the Nick color effects and all the rest of that. Oh, no, it's this one. This one. Here we go. So this kind of finishes with that feel of like weightlessness, of vampiric, of unnatural. Maybe somebody's dead and laying in a coffin, kind of just playing to that idea. So it was a combination of both some work in Lightroom, sending it out to Photoshop, letting it come back as a TIFF. But Nick Color Effects, Glamour Glow, which is like my favorite effect. It's like the whole reason I have Nick Color Effects is just for that one little thing. And then also the Photoshop Neural Filter Skin Smoothing. But I pushed it to like 80. And like 80 and 20 were the defaults, like 50 and 0. So I pushed it pretty far because I wanted it to feel sparkly. If you've ever seen Twilight, you will know what I mean there. So, but there's no other, the TIFF has no other edits. So just to kind of show, where we started, right? Kind of started back here. Just again, a different edit. It's not to say this is what you have to do, but this is just another way you could go with it. Okay. Yeah. But I really love this pose. I love her expression. I think it really works. So. And now we have a super fun photo from Jim. Jim took a safari this spring, I guess, late spring. And what an action shot. Woo, what an action shot. So he's at 105, so very close, right? 105 millimeters. That's not very far at all. 2000 ISO, which is totally fine. 1/640th of an action. If you want to be a little critical, I mean, it's not sharp there. All right, whatever. It's a great image. I don't care about that. I love the dust kind of coming off the back of this other cat. I think this is an interesting crop. I struggle generally with square crops. I don't know. It doesn't suit my eye. I have a hard time placing elements in a square. But I think this is a good case for it. It fills the frame with this big diagonal, right? We kind of have this big diagonal from top left to bottom right. So we have a diagonal, then we have action filling in that. Look at the eyes. Ooh, it's so good. So we have these eyes of the cat. We have the big paws kicking up dust. This golden light coming from behind. So I think it's and again, it's only at 105, man. That is so close to the action. It's so crazy to me. You would think that something like this would be, 400 or 600, 800 millimeters away to really see it. But to be that close is pretty neat. Now, one of the things is that lower shutter speed does, because it's so close, the apparent motion is more pronounced. So when action's closer, you actually need more shutter speed. If this had been at 800, it might have captured it without any blur, but because you're closer, the apparent motion is faster. And so I think that's kind of something to think about. I love this backlight, but then the way the light's kind of hitting the face again, I guess it's catching a bounce off the sand here and kind of bouncing back in a little bit. I think there's been some work done maybe on the legs and the face. But I love the way this light's kind of catching this under right here, that kind of golden glow in the area underneath the big cat's body. I love the paws and just the eyes. Like, man, something's about to happen. This curved tail. It's really fun. So things you could have done. 3200, get up to maybe a thousandth of a shutter speed. This highlight got this highlight along the edge here and here got a little out of control. You know what? It's not maybe technically perfect, but I don't let technical get in the way of interesting. And so I don't mind that whatsoever. But some people may have something to say about that. But I think it's pretty neat. Just that image to get it in the first place, get it, and then worry about the technical later. So yeah, good fitting of action and square crop. Could have gone a little bit faster. Yeah, I have a hard time with square crop, so I went completely opposite direction, as Josh is known to do, and we went 16 by 9. I kind of like the way this 16 by 9 has more of the road, and it feels like more of an arc or a circular feel into the road. I really played up the golden in the top of the frame, and then I really accentuated the blues in the bottom of the frame down here. And so we can see we did quite a bit of radial masking. I warmed it up considerably. I painted in the face. I added whites and dehaze to the eyes. So I took this center action, made everything around it darker and less bright, and I cooled it down. So everything outside this first circle got cooler, okay, by 31. And I think I also, yeah. And then I also took away texture, clarity, and dehaze. So everything that's not in the center is softer, is cooler, and is darker, okay? And then we did some like more local, right? So kind of that lower cat brightened him up a little bit. The big cat brightened him up just a little bit and warmed him up. And then just on the face, added whites. So we boosted the whites just in the face. And then in the top right, we made it warmer. Okay, so this top right, warmer and brighter. In the lower left, we did cooler and darker. And then in the top left, again, warmer and brighter. Okay, so that's all that's really going on in terms of masking. Vibrance up to 40. I really want it to be oversaturated. And then no split toning or anything like that. So, but it was more about showing how I use masking to put the focus on the big cat here in the center. But then everything else is subservient to that. And I didn't try to control these highlights here. If you really try to control them, it just looks strange. So I just let it go. I didn't try to control them. I didn't try to bring them under heel. I just let them go. But if we look at our histogram, nothing is black. There's nothing that's actually in the shadows so much that if you made a print, that it would be in the black. Now there is some highlight clipping just a little bit along this edge of the jawline here, and on this hip here is probably going to spike in a print. So that's something to maybe tone it down slightly, but I kind of like it. I like the edge light. I love the aggressive nature. I think it makes the difference between the highlights and the shadows even more pronounced. So I just went with it. I will say the way to get this mask is object selection. So if we want to hit create mask objects, and then we can paint. Let's say if we want to do this bottom one here, right? We can kind of paint loosely, and maybe it does a good job, maybe it doesn't. But object selection can be, it did a really nice job as a way to kind of mask that. So if we wanted to do something just, instead of a radial, we could do something with more, right, with more detail or more specificity. That's something that we could do as well. So it's just select mask object, then you kind of roughly paint what you want to come in there. So that's what I use on the big cat here to kind of brighten him up and warm him up. And then everything else being more cool gave it more contrast, right? So we have a warm, cool contrast working as well. Yeah, cool. This is we're going to see some cars. This is from William. Sorry to think for a second. An Alpina, which is kind of a special edition BMW. I think this is a really good it's nice, right? It's squared up. It's good low angle, kind of shows the stance of the car. There is some pretty good road. I might clean all of that up. There's some pretty good, yeah, pretty good scraping going on there. But I think the colors are nice. Nice blue in the background. The car's kind of, it looks a little blue. But I think getting low, getting that front grille shot, I think this is a very classic, just head on, straight on, low, make the car seem bigger, taller, more aggressive by getting low and shooting up. Right, just like you would with like an athlete, right? You get low and shoot up, it makes an athlete look more imposing, makes somebody look more statuesque. So I think this is a really great angle, kind of that zero angle to shoot head on. An easy way to do this shot is to get your central focus and put it right there. And you can use that then as a guide when you're shooting. Put that center dot just right in between those two grills or on the logo there. We're shooting kind of wide open, 3.2, nothing terrible, but I think it makes that background really separate out nicely with an 85. I love shooting car stuff with an 85 and really just isolating it from a background. A couple things I see, this dust spot right there kind of bothers me because it's this nice white background and then there's dust spot there. There's a couple other little pebbling over there. I like the out of focus highlights though, in the sky. There's nothing distracting about it. It's just nice and simple. So that's kind of nice. It does look like the car is running because I can see all the exhaust. And so that's causing some extra bokeh right there as the exhaust fumes punch in there. But nobody else is going to notice that but me. You can see it here too, but whatever. So yeah, it's a nice classic shot. I think it's done well. Good exposure. But this is mean thing. So let's see what we would do. So I went with a different camera profile. I brought down the highlights even more. I pumped the vibrance even more. And I added dehaze to it. I don't think... Oh, yeah. And then this is just a make everything outside the circle darker, right? Just a heavy vignette for the circle, right? These two things are kind of the eyes of the car. But then on all of the parts, so tires, headlights, grille, I have this preset that I call wheels. So it's 0.1 exposure, plus 20 shadows, plus 20 whites, and then plus 10 texture, plus 15 clarity. So it just kind of punches things up. Let me kind of hide this to show you. It's subtle, but look at the headlights and then look at the grille. It just kind of, and the wheels, you'll see it kind of punch up just a little bit, add some more life to the eyes, right? The headlights and the grille are kind of the eyes of a portrait of a car. And so this is just punching those up a little bit. You kind of see that right there. The other thing I did is it's hard shooting cars outside because they're so reflective, especially a dark car like this. And the windshield, the hood, and this area over here, we darkened. So let me show you what that did. See how if I turn it off, the windshield's kind of, the shadows are pretty high. And then this area along the hood and this area over here doesn't really match this area. And so what we did, you kind of see it in the masking, is I just wanted to more closely match the right-hand side of this car and the windshield with the left-hand side of the car that's not getting that reflection. Let me show you that again, just so you kind of see it. So the mask doesn't cover this area. It just covers kind of this and this. And so by turning it on, you kind of see the difference there. But it's just a way to kind of darken up some of those shadows. So that's something I did. I also removed the pebbles. So there's a bunch of little like dots and pebbles and stuff on the ground. Got rid of those. So that's kind of the big. There wasn't any split toning. There wasn't any color grading. None of that. Just dehaze, vibrance, and then darkened up the areas to match the rest of the body panels. A lot of automotive is just matching body panels. Another way you can do this is shoot with a camera on a tripod with a polarizer. And then for each body panel, rotate the polarizer so that it fixes each body panel and then merge them with layer masking in Photoshop. So that's another way you could have done it. Okay, good. Fun car. And then this is from Steve, who's Binky. He actually shot this for me. So kind of a cool shutter drag. This is for a Shakespeare troupe, and they wanted some dramatic, kind of light whip, not light whip, but like shutter pan photos. They wanted them dark and moody, and I think this accomplished it. I really love how clean how horizontal that motion is, and I like that the two, like the face is purple and then yellow, and so that's a fun contrast, right? Purple and yellow are complementary, so it's a really nice way to add contrast as learn your colors, purple, yellow, but it's a really good horizontal whip pan. I feel like the dark kind of gets really lost here, and I feel like the hair kind of gets a little lost. I'd like to see a little bit more in that eye, especially kind of that eye. I just want a little bit more life in there, like 10 degrees of that light more around toward the camera side. But I like this yellow. I like this purple and this orange. I think that's a really fun color triangle right there. Yellow, pink, kind of red, orange. So I think that's really fun. I like the life in the eye here, but I want to see that matched in the life in the eye there. So just that angle away from that jawline, or if she had turned just slightly this way. I think the crop's good. These are really hard when you're shooting because you have to shoot these so loose, just to account for the motion of the whip. If you notice, it was shot at 1/10 of a second, again with an 85. Hey, my favorite lens, portrait length. So yeah, let's see what we did. Yeah, my big. I wish there was a little bit more life here, and I wish the eyes and face had a little bit more. So I went way brighter, like way brighter, like 2 stops almost brighter. But a lot of it's to get more life in those eyes. Again, I played with just a tone curve here just to brighten it up. A stop and a half up, boosted the shadows a whole lot, took the vibrance up a whole lot. Now, for presence, globally, I went down in all the presence, right? Negative texture, negative clarity, negative dehaze. But then with color grading, we came back, right? We came back from it and really boosted pinks to get that magenta in the background brighter, added pink in the shadows, and then kind of green in the highlights to balance it out. And then luminance, I brightened up all the hair and the neck just by color. I don't think I did a ton. Yeah, just a left gradient there to go down highlights to kind of even out this background, and then brightened up again the area here just to brighten up that exposure. All of this is always just to add focus to where I want it to go. So if we hit from the raw file to this, you kind of see like how much we pushed it. So it's still dramatic. It still has shadows. It still has contrast. But now there's kind of data all around it. If we look at our histogram now, we can see that there's pretty good distribution of data. Nothing's all the way into the black. Nothing's all the way to the white. I killed I didn't let it go all the way to the top. So I just kind of crushed my highlights a little bit, my whites a little bit. So I really pushed it further. I didn't do any skin retouching or anything like that. This is really more about showing color and showing, how much I would push something. So these are hard to do. It's a very high risk, high reward, right? You might take 30 and get 1, whereas with a normal portrait, you might take 30 and get 29. So it's very opposite of normal. Okay, here's another one from William. He gave me lots of cars. This is an Acura NSX, one of the great cars of the 90s. This is super fun. A couple things just to work on these tires. It looks like something maybe got shifted either in post, but we're missing some of that red just under the wheel there. We kind of have some glitches along the wheels. And again, some of the glitches along the wheels. When I'm painting these, I'll add just a little bit of red over the tires so that it feels like the red floor is reflecting back up the tires. So maybe with like a 50% opacity, when you're layer masking, you can paint those in at like 50% to just add a little bit of red to blend this area in so that it feels like the tires are catching some of the reflection and bouncing back upwards into the light. So that's something I like to do. But yeah, I think something may have gotten shifted slightly, a pixel or two, when you're doing those. When you're in Photoshop, you can align layers, and it'll take care of some of that. But I really love the light whip in the back. I love the red and red, kind of this monochromatic feel. I like the angle. The other thing, I like turning this front wheel. I like kicking it to the left just a little bit, just to give me more of a view into the wheels, and kind of the life of the eye, so that it's not so straightforward. So I like kicking that wheel. In this case, I'd kick it to the left. But I think it's a really good angle. Nice and low, really shows the stance of a car, really makes those wheels look huge, and these like gold brakes, like look at that. Whoa. I don't know too many cars with gold brakes, so that's really fun. So what would I do? I feel like the car's a little dark relative to the rest, and so I brightened up the car. So all that is just a radial. It's just a radial there with basically one stop brighter to bring the car up to kind of be brighter than the background, because the car is the thing that should be popping. And then I use that wheels preset again. It's just a way to kind of pop any body panels. Let me show you what it looks like without and with. So the grille, the radiator, the lights, the rims, all of that, just to kind of take a brush and go over those just as a way. And then for the floor, I cranked up the clarity just to give it more texture, to really make it kind of more match the fiery light whips in the back. So a pretty simple adjustment, just brightening up that body panel. I just felt like it was a little low, and then really punching all the shiny bits, grill, radiator, wheels, all that. So, yeah, cool. This is my photo. This is the raw file. Not great. I have a flash working back behind. It was kind of a tree tunnel. You kind of see this flash back here. I shot it at 1/25th of a second for some reason. And I'm like 2 stops underexposed. It's very blue. I've done nothing to this one so far. But that's not the right exposure. This is my buddy Caleb. Caleb actually used to be an assistant for me back, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. And now he's all grown up and got married this weekend. But I like, I broke 2 flashes. I broke 2 of my strobes in the last 5 days. So I'm doing great. So I don't love this photo. So to get it right, I boosted it almost 3 stops. So way to go, Josh. You shot it 3 stops wrong. But just to show you, this is really just to show you that I don't get things right either. And I had to warm this up because they were in the deep shadows, and I warmed it up to 1,000 or 10,000 to really warm it up. So let me go back to the original. Too cold, too underexposed. The light in the background's too bright relative to the foreground. And so we just did work to try to even that out. That's all I'm showing you here, is that I make mistakes when I'm shooting too. We had like 15 minutes to get these photos done in like 4 locations, and I underexposed way too much. So that's all that one's for. Okay. This one was done with Chris and Jess. I think this is Jess's photo. But I love the setup. I love the idea of like a tea party with gasoline. So that's what I'm going to call this one, Tea Party with Gasoline. And Jess told me that she did some Photoshop work to kind of extend the flames to fill the frame a little bit, which I love. I love this field. I like that only one of the models, Emily there, is looking at us. The other model, I think, is Trinity, kind of looking away. So we have some contrast going on. They're not both looking at us. I love this setup. I love this tea party and the silhouette. I just think that's so fun. And then they're the kind of Southern Belle look. I don't know. This to me is just really fun. Look at all the flames over here. Flames. The bulbs, whole flashes. Yeah, Chris, I broke the handle off my 400, so it doesn't sit. It just flops down. So I have to get that replaced. And then, yeah, one of my bulbs is just dead. I can hear it like turn on. I can see it trying to flash, but no lights coming out. But I think everything's working except the bulb. So it's not the worst thing in the world. But yeah, it's no fun. Getting back to Jess, I really love this. I love, it's really hard to shoot these flames. They're so bright for a split second. This area, especially right in here, they're so bright right at one instant. And then this area kind of in that right in there is so hard to deal with because exposure is changing so fast. Um, and you can see pretty high ISO f8, 1/400th to kind of catch some of those flames. But yeah, I think it's fun. I love the outfits. I think thought went into this. It was shot at 91. If it was me, when I've done these, I would pull the models even closer if possible and shoot more like 135, 200 mil, 400 mil, and really frame them just up against that fire. So pulling them away from the fire, because with this wider, and not that 91's wide, but I think with a longer lens, you would get rid of some of this area over here, right? This area you could get rid of, and then same with kind of this area that's kind of dead as well, right? There's not much going on there. And so pulling them even further away, they're probably 20 feet away, maybe 30 or 40 feet away, shooting longer. And that's going to narrow your angle of view even more. And that's really going to bring some of that focus, so where it's just our tea party and just fire. But it's really fun. Look at how much the heat's like swirling the background. It's got a whole Monet background over there just from the fire kind of heating it up. So really fun. I like that little blue in the sky, orange, and then just this look. I love her look of like, am I drinking tea? Am I drinking kerosene? Right. I think that's fun. So yeah, I would have done maybe a longer lens, move this even closer, and further away from the flames. That'd be my big. So I went just different, right? Again, something from Josh y'all probably haven't seen. I went black and white. Yeah, we did it. We did it. I was playing with a color and I just couldn't get it right. And I was playing with a color and I just couldn't get it right. So I did what any good photographer does when they can't get the color right. I shifted it to black and white. And then it was shot at f8, which I didn't love because I thought they were the same kind of depth field as the flames. And so I used the new, well, that's not so new anymore, but I use this lens blur. And so if we can visualize depth there we go. And so I use this as a way to isolate them a little bit more. And I went with a vertical crop. So you can kind of see my crop there. I don't know. I just kind of got rid of the dead space. I did lose some of the flame, but I think it matches more. And I really was just looking at the edge of the fire here, and the edge of the fire here is a way to balance my action. So instead of shooting at f8, now I'm shooting at like f2, essentially, right? And so it's just a fun thing to do. Yeah. I also kind of went with that high contrast, big S curve on my tone curve. And instead of going black and white up here, I just dropped out my saturation. And then I crushed my blacks. I boosted my whites. And I don't think I did too many. Oh, I did. I selected subject and I inverted it when I was trying to work color. Those don't really matter too much. I didn't actually really do anything with them. But I wanted to make them a little bit brighter relative to the fire. And that's all those masks are doing, is just making them a little bit brighter, darkening the fire a little bit. But I like the way this feels. It almost feels like a tilt shift, maybe. It feels more like an old-timey right there, dressed up with an old-timey Victorian era tea party. So I thought black and white was appropriate here. Made it feel like an old 10 type or maybe a medium format. And I think I cropped it to an 8x10. Yeah, so it's even an 8x10 crop, which is kind of an older format, right? 8x10 cameras. So everything was built around the idea of make it feel older. They're wearing old timey clothes, drinking old timey tea, and it just kind of makes just adds another layer to it. And really, it's because I couldn't get the colors right that I wanted. I played with it, and I couldn't get them right. So, but really cool. I like that this is an idea that's executed. I don't think I say that enough, but anytime you can make a shoot happen with ideas and props and models and everything else, like there's a lot that goes into that, right? And the logistics are just as hard as the actual shooting, if not harder. And so kudos to the team who put this together, because I think that's We need more of that. We need more of ideas put together instead of just pretty girls in the field. Now we have pretty girls in the field with fire. So that's one step better. All right, here's another one from this weekend wedding in Virginia. It's kind of the last wedding for. But I want to show this photo for a couple reasons. One, we actually got the Milky Way in Virginia, so East Coast Milky Way. Not as great as like Big Ben, but it's there. All right, it's there. And this is straight out of camera. This is exactly. There's no edits on this file. So let me just kind of show you areas that I hate. So I hate this bridge right here. It's too bright, right? That's too bright. It's distracting. This is too bright and distracting. They're not bright enough. They're okay, but they're not quite bright enough. I think the feet are too bright, and I think this blue and all the colors there are a little bit washed out. I think the sky isn't bright enough, and I think it's too orange. And so essentially what we did is that. So I blued the sky. I used generative fill to get rid of those things over here. I used radial to darken down this area there. I used a linear gradient down here. And I used a radial gradient to bring up there. So let's kind of take a look at what we did. Almost all the work is gradients. So I selected the sky, and look, I took it down 40 to make it blue, right? Sky shouldn't be orange, sky's blue. And then I added dehaze and a whole bunch of stuff to try to bring out anything I could in this background, right? It's that last little bit of Milky Way. We actually sat here and did Milky Way for like 45 minutes with all the different bridal parties. But then I did a radial to tone down that area, radial to turn down that area, a linear to tone down that area, and then another radial to bring out the Milky Way, and then another radial to bring out their faces. Okay. Now, almost all that work, if you see there's nothing going on here, okay, there's nothing here. I could probably take the vibrance and bring that out even more. But there's really nothing done other than everything in the masking tools. So just kind of think, I just want to show this one as a way of like getting rid of distracting elements, right? So there's just getting rid of those hot spots there, right? We can see if we go back to the original, see how distracting those are. We don't want that. Light painting, strobing, and Milky Way. Yes, Chris. So there's a softbox above the camera, kind of angling down, but it's pretty high. It's probably 10 feet up. It's a 15-second exposure with a light whip. And Milky Way all at once, because that's Josh. The couple was not ready. That they were kind of blown away that we did this, but I flew a light whip all the way to Virginia just for the shot. Anyway, but distracting element here, distracting element there, right? I want you to be looking here, so everything needs to serve that. So darkening the areas there, making the sky more pronounced, darkening the feet, because I don't want you to look at the 14 mil distortion, right? See how the feet are brighter, so your eyes go there, and now his feet look like they're size 22. We don't want that. And so we use our exposure gradients to bring those areas down, so that I want you to look at their faces. And that's what this last one on top here is doing, is brightening this area so that you're looking at the brightest thing, which is the center of the frame that I want you to see. So, yeah. And that's it. That's it. Episode 38. Josh Says Mean Things. A couple things coming up. We have Precision Weekend. So coming up on not this weekend, but next weekend, we're doing Film Noir, Glam, Mastering the Headshot, and Let's Get Weird, all in one weekend. So that'll be fun. For Patreons, we have an event. We're doing a photo walk the last Sunday in September. Check out the post for more details. We're going to be playing with panoramas and abstract, where we just take shapes and forms and colors of buildings, of sky, of whatever we see, and really just focus on composition and color, and really just focus on those two things as a way to. It's kind of like a way to like lift weights for our eye, right? We're going to work on getting without as many distractions as models and light whips and all those things, as a way to build your reps on just composition and color. So that's really where we're going to be focused on, walking downtown. So check that out. And if you have questions, as always, y'all know how to hit me up. Send me a text, send me a DM. I'm always available. Love hearing from you guys. Any photo questions? Now I have to go to the Godox store and buy a whole bunch of replacement parts. So anyway, you'll have a great night. Thanks for joining us. That was episode 38 of Josh Says Mean Things. Thanks, y'all.